Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Lunch with Haley. I'm Brad Bialy, Digital Marketing Manager and Social Pro Product Lead here at Haley Marketing Group. We're going to get started in about 10 minutes here, but as we're letting people come in and as attendees are joining the webinar, I want to make sure everybody's familiar with the chat window, familiar with the questions window. So if you're in early, and there are quite a few of you here already, I'm ask a couple real simple questions just to get the conversation flowing in that chat window. Why don't you let us know where you're dialing in from today? Haley Marketing is based out of Buffalo, New York. It's another gorgeous day here in Buffalo. Had some snow this morning, which was a little unexpected. Wasn't really thrilled about that, but go ahead, use that chat window. Let us know where you're dialing in from, and let us know what you're doing in your local market, what you're seeing. Leslie, thanks for joining us. Hope everything's great in Lexington for you. Wendy, thanks for being here. Hope everything's going well in New Jersey. I know it's certainly crazy over your way, so I appreciate you taking some time to join us today. Peter from Syracuse, thanks for joining us, Peter. Appreciate you hopping in for lunch with Haley here. Yeah, Lewis dialing in from Los Angeles. Haven't made my way out to LA yet, but hoping to get that way shortly. We're supposed to be out near the West Coast later this month, and unfortunately everything got shut down due to the coronavirus here, but happy to be dialing in from a remote standpoint here. Crystal dialing in from Atlanta. She's on mandatory stay in place through April 30th, so lots of Zoom calls. I can certainly relate. We're going to talk a lot about Zoom throughout the presentation and working from a remote standpoint. So if I have any questions for you, Crystal, I might tag you in here for part of the presentation. Jane from Hamilton, lovely day. Blue skies and fluffy clouds. I cannot say the same, unfortunately. Buffalo is quite snowy this morning. We're breaking from that, but it's kind of just the way it is out by us. 75 in Texas. Lacey, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you tuning in for lunch with Haley. So another question for everybody. We're certainly going through some interesting and challenging times here. What's your staffing firm seeing? What's your recruitment firm seeing? Again, use that chat window, use that questions window. Just let us know what you're seeing on the front lines. You know, if you think about the candidates that you might not be able to place right now, or the job orders that you may be gaining or losing, we'd love to know what you're hearing in your specific local market. 80 degrees in sunny Charlotte. Caitlin, enjoy that. I actually was in Charlotte about a year or two ago speaking at a conference, and managed to get over there to a Hornets game. It's a nice place over there. If you're hopping in here as we're getting started, we're going to get started with Lunch with Haley around 2 o'clock. As you're joining, please feel free to use that questions window, use that chat window. Either let me know where you're dialing in from, what city you're dialing in, and how you're watching Lunch with Haley. Would also love to know what you're seeing in your local market. Would love to know what you're experiencing, what your team's experiencing, just so we could get a better pulse on what some of you are experiencing on the front lines. Appreciate the honesty here, Leslie. Leslie had mentioned there's some layoffs, some furloughs, and only a handful of clients are really currently hiring. Brandon, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoy Lunch with Haley. Clifford, good to see you as well. Yeah, Leslie, that's certainly not uncommon. You know, as we talk to different organizations, we're seeing a quite similar situation. Crystal's in the chat window here saying that over 60% of her team members are teleworking, which Haley Marketing is a full 100% here. So we're all fully remote. So I certainly understand what you're seeing there. Wow. One comment here of up to 80% of one staffing firm lost 80% of their business rather. It's astonishing. I'm hoping some of the tips here in this presentation will help with that. Increase in need with grocery and drug firms. That's good to know. Randy from Madison dialing in here, just saying that clients are a little afraid, not really sure where things are going to go, not sure what's going to happen here, so kind of playing it safe. Don't want to hire, don't want to let anybody go because we're kind of in a hold pattern. So I appreciate that honesty there. Hey, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it. 85 in Tampa, Florida. That is what dreams are made of for people up in Buffalo, New York. So enjoy that. She's saying her team's full remote here as well, and quite a few placements, but they're all remote placements. That's really good. Being able to facilitate those needs is a huge help. Temporary business down 30%, another down 40%, but staying at that level. That's kind of the silver lining. If we can stay there, then we can start to battle back. Appreciate that honesty. It's a nice stat. 93% of current contractors are working remote. That's an interesting stat, Lewis. Appreciate that. I think we're certainly entering an interesting situation where onboarding and interviewing and screening through remote means are going to become the new norm. It's going to open up to a lot of opportunity for staffing and recruiting firms to screen candidates in different ways. Maybe not needing people to come into the office. I actually saw a tweet today that maybe we just shut down handshaking all in general. Shut down that collectively. I know Todd Lewandowski from Team Haley has been saying that for years. The death to the handshake. So I think we're certainly in the middle of an interesting situation. And as we navigate this, it's great to see the industry come together. Great to see everybody here joining us today for Lunch with Haley. Engel, that's a really interesting comment here. Getting attitude from prospects that you reach out to. We're here as an industry just trying to help. And that's really the premise and a great segue here to get started as we look at today's Lunch with Haley on managing your brand accounts on social media during the COVID-19 pandemic. As we look at this industry, as we look at staffing and recruiting, we exist as a fundamental industry to put great people in great opportunities. Throughout the presentation, you're going to see a lot of imagery of lighthouses. As I was sitting here and I was putting together the deck, I was thinking through the imagery for the situation that we're in. If you really think about the lighthouse as a beacon of hope, I really think that that's where we as an industry are right now. We're facing uncertain times, but there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope on that horizon. And I'm here today to share with you about 12 to 15 different social media tactics that you can deploy as you leave this presentation. As we get started, I do want to share that if you have questions, please feel free to use that chat window, use that question window throughout the presentation. I would love to entertain those questions as they come in. If it's something that you're thinking, the chances are high that with almost 200 other participants on, that others have that same question. So please feel free to use that chat window. We've budgeted some extra time for today's Lunch with Haley, so I'm also going to stay on at the end. But if this presentation bleeds into an hour, hour and 15, hour and 30 because of the questions throughout the presentation, I'm okay with that. If you have to hop off at 3 o'clock, we are recording today's presentation. Team Haley and the marketing team, I know I'm fully remote, but you can kind of applaud from where you are. I remembered to record the presentation on start, so that's a big win for us. But please feel free, if you have to drop off at 3, that's great, that's fine. But if you want to stay on, please use that questions window. I want to start with a quote from Christopher Reeve. At some time, often when we least expect it, we all have to face overwhelming challenges. When the unthinkable happens, the lighthouse is hope. Once we find it, we must cling to it with absolute determination. When we have hope, we discover powers within ourselves we may have never known. The power to make sacrifices, to endure, to heal, and to love. Once we choose hope, everything is possible. As I was starting the presentation, I alluded to the imagery of the lighthouse. If we think about our industry in staffing and recruiting, we are here to bring that hope, whether that's hope of a great placement, It's hope for a candidate and finding them their next opportunity. We are and always will be that beacon of hope. As we look at the situation that we're in, as we look at these current circumstances, we need to remember that that's what we're here for. Yes, it might be challenging right now. We might be undergoing a stormy sea. But remember that we are that beacon of hope. We're here to facilitate the needs of clients and candidates, and ultimately we're here to be that beacon of hope. See, there's a scary truth. The staffing industry as a whole is truly being tested right now. And I don't want to alarm you, but I am going to share some stats on the next coming slide here, and it's probably nothing you haven't seen or heard, but it is alarming. Recent tweet here. America lost 700,000 jobs in March, ending the country's 10-year labor market expansion, with the unemployment rate climbing to 4.4% from 3.5%. Another tweet from April 2nd. 9.95 million people in the last 14 days have lost their jobs. Pro tip here, make sure you always proof your tweets before you hit send. With 220 retweets, you can't go back on that one. But if we think about it, the unemployment rate is now estimated to be 10%. That's from April 2nd. A report from NBC News. Unemployment rate may hit 32%, topping Great Depression peak of 24.9%. 54% of U.S. small businesses have either closed or expect to close temporarily over the next 14 days. It's reported from Inc. on April 3rd. In a new poll taken from March 25th to 28th and released from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, reveals that 1 in 4 small businesses are going to close permanently amid an economic downturn. We're here today not to alarm you. We're not here to say anything that you're not already seeing from your local news, your local reports. But if we think about it, we really think about where we're at. March was the longest year ever. If we think about what we really went through in the month of March, think about people moving to a remote workforce, working from home, working with kids, working with different schedules, and having to accommodate those needs. Having to accommodate the needs not only of your employer and of your daily accountabilities and responsibilities, but also of your challenges and your accountabilities to be a parent. March was an incredibly long year. I was on LinkedIn. It's kind of funny. I was on LinkedIn on March 1st, and I saw one recruiter. He changed his profile picture up at the end of March, and I couldn't even recognize him. You think about the impact that the month of March could have on all of us. It's pretty astonishing. Joking aside, it has been an incredibly long month. If we think about where we've come, what we've understood, and how we've grown to use technology in the past month, it's astonishing. As I go out and I speak to different associations, different conferences, I speak for different staffing and recruiting agencies, there's always been this sort of stereotype that the industry is a little outdated. What I'm super proud to see is how everybody that I've talked to has jumped into this remote first work style. Now, somebody in the chat window earlier had said that they've adopted a full Zoom process so that they can interview candidates, they can talk to their team members, they can video call, they can voice call. They have this whole process in place. Now, that might have been in place before COVID-19, but if it wasn't, think about the advancements that we've made in this past month dealing with what we've had to deal with. If we think about, again, the lighthouse as a beacon of hope, just because there's stormy seas, the storm will eventually pass. We need to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success today so that as that storm passes, we're in a better place when it leaves than we were going into this. We want to make sure that we can be sure we leave this pandemic stronger, that we leave ahead of the competition, and most importantly, we leave with more market share. I'm here today to share my insights and my tips on how to manage your brand accounts on social media during the COVID-19 pandemic. The tips that you're going to hear throughout the presentation are very specific to social media. We could sit here and talk for days about how to build a robust digital marketing strategy for COVID-19. I was tasked today to bring you with the most important things that you could be doing on social media. Now, as a bit of a disclaimer, as I do in all of my presentations, I want to share that this list of resources and what you should be deploying, this list of tactics, isn't something that you should jump into all at once. My goal here is not to overwhelm anybody. My goal is not to say that tomorrow you have to deploy these 13 or 15 different tactics. Now, this is going to be your social media workout program. Instead, start with one tactic. Start with what works best for you, and then go from there. Think about this as a social media program where you can take one idea, run with it this afternoon, try another early next week. Again, the goal is not to overwhelm. The goal is not to inundate you with different social media to the point where you say, I don't want to do this. This isn't for me. It's to give you a list of ideas so that you can select the one that's best for you. And I do want to mention once more, right before we get started here, if you're joining late, if you have questions throughout the presentation, I'm going to stay on the line afterwards in chat, answer your specific questions. But as we're going through these different tactics, if you do have questions, please feel free to use the chat window, use the questions window. Let's talk about them while we're on the topic. Maybe it's a social tactic that you've deployed. Maybe we're talking about Facebook ads, and this is something that your staffing firm has done religiously for 2 months now. Let's talk about that. Share your insights, and let's get that conversation rolling. So the first thing you can do as we navigate the COVID-19 landscape on social media is be mindful of the reader. Empathy, empathy, empathy. Now, I said it earlier, March was the longest year ever, and April is going to continue to be a long month too. Everybody is going through different things. Everybody is handling this differently. Everybody is in their own head trying to make sense of what this new normal means. We need to be mindful of the reader on social media. When we're creating a social post, we need to understand that person A who reads that post might not take it the same way as person B. We want to make sure that we're exhibiting empathy with every single post. We want to make sure that we're understanding that some people might be doing all right. Some people might be really fired up and get after it. And others might be sitting here just waiting for the day to end. Might be thinking, wow, how am I going to find my next job? What am I going to do? How is this going to pan out? How am I going to afford groceries next month? So we need to be sure that we're incredibly mindful of every single social media user. We need to be mindful that it's not just a page view. We're not just sitting here trying to generate more impressions, more engagement. We really need to think through what that means. That means that there's a human being on the other end of that mobile device looking at your messaging, looking at your social post. So we want to be mindful. I want to share a quick quote from Mark Schaefer. He's the author of Marketing Rebellion. He has a quote that I use in every single presentation I deliver that says, be more human. No matter what happens next, if we use that as our constant guide and filter, we'll be okay. The most human company wins. As we continue to navigate COVID-19 through our brand social media accounts, humanizing that brand, putting a human touch to that brand, to those profiles, is, in my opinion, the best way to get started. Understand that we need to be mindful of every single reader, every single social media user, and we need to be mindful of what they're going through. Again, if I may, be more human. No matter what happens next, if we use that as our constant guide and filter, we'll be okay. The most human company wins. The great part about this is that in the staffing and recruiting industry, we operate to be human. We're putting great people to work in great opportunities. And yes, those great opportunities, as some of you have already said in the chat window, are hard to find right now. I understand that. We understand that. But by understanding if we humanize our brand, we show that there's a human being on the other end of those messages. We continue to build that trust, earn that trust through social media users so that ultimately they know to come to you when they need help hiring or help finding their next job opportunity. The next point, listen first, talk second. We want to add value to the conversation. Social media is not a megaphone. It is not an opportunity to share one message with 1,000 people. Social media is an opportunity to listen to 1,000 people and have 1,000 independent conversations with those individuals. What we want to do is we want to listen first and we want to talk second. We want to add value to the conversation. I used to play music throughout Buffalo, New York quite a bit, and I was playing at this touring musician one time, and we were talking at the bar before the show. We got to talking about what I do, which is social media marketing and digital marketing, and he said, Brad, I get all these messages on Twitter all the time. Should I be answering those? And I said, Carter, if we were sitting here and you were talking to me, and as you were talking to me, all that I kept doing was looking at my phone or looking the other way or ignoring you, would you keep talking to me? Or would you go find somebody else to talk to? And I swear I saw the lights turn on. We need to be listening to what individuals are saying on social media and adding value to that conversation. We need to make sure that we're listening. Nobody likes that coworker or that family friend who is always about themselves. Every time they have a conversation, it's me, me, me. I want to listen and join that conversation. And how are we going to do that? We're going to circle our news feed like a hawk, and we're going to wait for opportunity. And as I was preparing the slide deck over the past, couple weeks, week or so, I pulled a couple screen grabs from my own Twitter feed of what I consider to be opportunity for staffing and recruiting firms. The first, an example here from the Buffalo News, local newspaper. Charter Communications hiring 200 people, raising wages. For me, the opportunity comes in the sense that, okay, if I was a staffing or recruiting firm, I now know that there is somebody, in fact, hiring in Buffalo, New York. That sounds like a lead to me. Maybe they do their own internal hiring. Maybe they have a staffing partner already. But now I know that at least, okay, it appears that the cable and internet niche is hiring. That sounds like good leads to me. I would instinctively add a comment here. I would add a reply, and I would start to join that conversation. I would add as much value as I can. I would share my insights, my expertise. Another opportunity. Mark Poloncarz tweeted this just last night. It couldn't have been any better. I was working on finishing up the slide deck, and I saw this tweet come through, and I said I had to add it to the deck. What he had put together and what Erie County, which is where Buffalo, New York is located, put together is a web page identifying local employers who are currently hiring. To me, that screams opportunity. That screams 100 different associations, businesses, organizations that are currently hiring. I bet that they would entertain a conversation from a reputable staffing firm. I bet that they would entertain that conversation if done the right way. And yes, they might do their own internal hiring. They might already have a partner. But now we're seeing who is still hiring through this time. For some of you that messaged in the comments and in the questions here that business is down 30 to 40%. And I know there were a couple of you. I don't want to name names here, but 30 to 40% drop. What I would do is I would look at who else is hiring in your local market. How can you pivot? How can you change direction? And who can you help at this time? Another great opportunity, and we talked about this on Insights, the podcast last week. Matt Lozar, our director of recruitment marketing, and myself. A tweet from Andrew Yang. Imagine looking for a job in this mess. It's ridiculous. This isn't to get political. I truthfully don't care who you would vote for or who you wouldn't vote for. That's not really at the top of my list of things to invest my time in right now. What I do care about is attention, and what I do care about is the fact that with 2,600 comments on a tweet, this is where your audience is residing. So Andrew Yang put out a tweet saying, imagine looking for a job in this mess. It's ridiculous. 6,000 people retweeted it. There were a ton of likes. But more importantly, there were over 2,000 comments, 2,000 replies to the tweet. What would be incredible is if a staffing firm saw this opportunity and hopped into the replies and said, yeah, looking for a job in this mess is challenging. But we have 35 opportunities right now in the local market, and we would love to help. If you're from Buffalo, please give us a call. We're here to help you. What a great question come in from Jenna here on this topic. And I'm going to take a pause here just to read it real quick. For those opportunities that you come across on social media, would you recommend sharing that article with job leads directly from your brand account? Or would you reply to the tweet, or would you just retweet it? In this case, I, as the brand account, or we could even cross over here, Jenna. We could talk about a personal account too. Both are fine. But really from the brand account, hop in here and leave a reply. Hop in and say, yeah, looking for a job is challenging. That's what we're here for. We're here to help. Send us your resume. If you've been recently laid off or if you're recently unemployed, we would love to help. We're still actively filling X amount of roles, and there's got to be one that's perfect for you. We would love to have 5 minutes just to chat with you about this. What you're doing when you look at these other opportunities that are being posted is you're looking for who might be replying, who might be leaving a comment, and you're joining that conversation. Yeah, in your case, Jenna, too, you could retweet this. You could share this with your community, your connections. In that case, you're being a great resource. You're saying, yeah, there's 200 people that are hiring right now. You could go directly to them, or you could come to us. We can still help. So we want to spin that in a way. We don't want people to just go directly to these employers. We want them to come to you and learn about your services. So you do want to spin that messaging, and you want to control that narrative. But these are awesome opportunities. And again, it's not about politics. It's not about who's saying what. It's about understanding that there's a community of thousands of people that are having a conversation about the situation that we're in, and you can hop into those comments. It's like going to a networking event and seeing 15 people talk about the local sports team that you love. You can easily hop in and say, yeah, I love the Bills. Let's talk about XYZ, and immediately join that conversation. It's exactly what we're doing here. Thanks for the question, Jen. I really appreciate that. Next, we want to reach inbox zero. And inbox zero is much more than just your email. Inbox zero to me is your LinkedIn company page, the messages that might come through. It's Facebook Messenger. It's Twitter and those direct messages that you might get there, Instagram direct messages. We have to be consistent, and we need to be mindful of reaching inbox zero. I would even argue more so on social media than your actual email. Social media users, I remember reading a stat a little while ago, and forgive me if this isn't perfect, but I remember reading something along the lines of that somebody that tweets at a brand account expects a reply in 15 minutes or less. The standard on an email is 24 hours. If I email you at 11:11, I, in a way, expect to be responded to within 24 hours. I think that's pretty typical, as we look at different, business practices and best practices. Twitter is 15 minutes. So we need to reach inbox zero, and we need to really be mindful of that. The scary part with that is Facebook Messenger has become the graveyard of leads. As we look at managing, the social media footprint for roughly 150 different staffing and recruiting firms, it pains me to see how many leads come through Facebook Messenger that often go unanswered. These are candidates reaching out about opportunities, clients possibly reaching out about opportunities. We need to be incredibly mindful of who is reaching out and how they're reaching out. We can set up things like autoresponders on Facebook so that the individual gets an automatic reply saying, hey, we monitor this inbox every 24 hours, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But at least set that up. But we want to make sure that people aren't just going into a black hole with their message. We want to make sure that if people are reaching out, you're responding to that. Again, I alluded to the conversation that I had with Carter, that touring musician, a couple of years ago in Buffalo. If somebody's asking you a question and you're not responding to that, and they're looking for their next job opportunity and your company isn't responding, where do you think that individual is going to go? They're not all of a sudden just no longer going to care about finding a job. They're going to go to your local competitor. They're going to go to a site and a job aggregator like Monster. They're going to go to a collective job board where they can view those available jobs. If they're reaching out, we want to make sure that we're being the resource that they're looking for, and we're answering their questions as effectively and efficiently as possible. So I challenge you, as we go through this, to think about how many messages you get on a daily basis on social media, and make sure that you're replying to everybody. Even if there's somebody just leaving a comment on one of your blog posts that you might have shared, a quick thanks goes a long way. Thanks for reading that. We really appreciate it. If somebody leaves feedback on something, thank them for their time. Thanks for reaching out. It doesn't look like we have an available job that fits your skills right now. Why don't you give us a call at the office, though? We'll get you on file, and when one opens up, you'll be the first person we call. Be human. Go back to that quote from Mark Schaefer, be human, the most human company wins. Responding to individuals, being human on social media is the best way that we can do that. Share the facts, local news, and information. When we think about a comprehensive social media strategy, time after time, you'll hear myself or the social media or the digital marketing team here at Haley Marketing say that we need a mix of content. We don't want all of our content to just be self-serving, all about us. We want a nice blend. We want to make sure that we're sharing great resources that are really a nice, healthy mix of content. As we look at navigating this COVID-19 situation that we're all in, I would encourage you to dial back a little bit of that self-serving content. We don't need to be sharing content that's always about us right now. Share the facts, share local news and information. And Jenna, this almost comes back to the question that you had asked a little while ago. For opportunities that come across social, do you comment, do you retweet, do you share? With local news, I think it's a matter of sharing it. It's saying that our brand, our organization cares about this local community. We're from Buffalo, New York, and we are here with you. We are all in this together. Here's what we're seeing. A couple examples on the slides here. If we look at downtown Buffalo first, we then go into posts from News 4. The local Marriott organized their lights on April 7th to reflect a giant heart. This posted really well for News 4, but a local staffing agency could retweet this image. They could share it out to their community. Let people know that they're also thinking about everyone in the local area. You don't have to take the picture. You don't have to claim this as your own. We're not saying steal it. We're saying share it. News 4 put this out for you. Go ahead and share it to your page as well. News 4 again posted a picture of some respiratory therapists at ECMC. Really admirable graphic here. And thinking through what this means for your organization, you don't need to place respiratory therapists to share this image. What you're doing by sharing this content is showing that you're a part of the community. You care about the individuals, and most importantly, you're thankful for the people that are going out and risking everything to keep everybody else safe. Another example here. World Health Day was a couple days ago. This would have been a great post for a local staffing agency to share as well. Thank you, healthcare workers, Western New York. And then one more, maybe my favorite, Takeout Tuesday. Remember to order local if you can. If you're comfortable with ordering local food, this is a great link that you could share. WKBW, local news here, News 7, put out a running list of some of the local establishments that are doing takeout, that are doing curbside. So from your staffing firm standpoint, yes, we're not flooding social media with another job opportunity. We don't have immediate ROI in the sense of, I say this and I'm going to say it later in the presentation, I know, but every post has to have a purpose. The purpose of this post isn't to generate an immediate application. The purpose of this post is to showcase that you're a part of the community. You're understanding what's going on. You're here for the local community, and you're in this with everybody else. So again, if you want to think through this in your own sharing strategy, what I would encourage you to do is add this into the mix of what you're already doing. I have a great question here from Olivia. Any advice on what to post for a corporate headquarters Facebook page? Should we share local news where our headquarters are located? That's a great question, Olivia. So if you have and I'm going to make a couple assumptions here. So please use that same window if I'm not exactly right here. So my thought is that you have a corporate headquarters, and then you have individual branch locations, Buffalo, Cleveland, Erie, PA, but your headquarters is in sunny Tampa, Florida, which is 80 degrees. That somebody let us know earlier in the chat window. What I would do through that corporate page is make sure that you have a almost general footprint in the sense of, hey, stay safe, stay home, wash your hands, make sure you're, being very, very mindful of what you're doing in terms of hygiene, cleanliness, making sure we're slowing the spread and we're stopping the spread of this virus. But then you're exactly right, Olivia. Then share your local news with that headquarters page. That local headquarter, even though it's the headquarter of other brand branches, still has a footprint in that local community. So I would absolutely encourage you to share things of what's going on in Buffalo if that's where you're based out of. Absolutely. Caitlin had a great post here. Yesterday was National Empanada Day. A little upset about that. I didn't know that. And their office made a post about the local Mexican restaurant and how they're doing takeout and how they're doing curbside. I think that's an incredible idea. Not only does that show that you're a part of the community, you're giving great business to a local establishment who might be struggling right now. Think about the impact that you might have. And I hadn't really planned this kind of train of thought, but if you think about something like a Takeout Tuesday and exactly what your team did, Caitlin, right? So your staffing firm, you made a post about a local establishment, right? And maybe somebody there has a family member who's looking for their next job opportunity, right? You don't know. So you're sharing a post about their establishment. They see that, they take a liking to that, they feel good about it, but that might come back to you. That might come back in the long run of, hey, I remember, Haley Marketing. They tagged us in that post a little while ago and they gave us some really good business because of that. That might end up coming back. So that's a really cool idea. Mark had a question here about how about creating location pages from the main page to showcase local news. I love that idea, Mark. And that is a talking point that I really go in depth on in the roadmap to social media success, which is another presentation on lunchwithhaley.com in the webinars on demand. What you can do is basically set up those location pages for your individual branches, and then they all operate on their own. That's a great idea. I'm going to take one more question here and then get back into the presentation because I do love the questions that are coming in. And as I had mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, I want to make sure that we take some time here to really think through everything and be available to answer those questions for you. So Katrina had a cool question here that said, I'm getting sick of seeing emails and posts and everything that has to do with COVID. What can we do to be different and catch people's attention to give some ease or rest? I'm actually going to ask that you hold on to that one because there's a couple ideas in here that are non-COVID related that I think will add some great clarity for you in this situation. Yes, we do want to join the conversation, talk about what's going on around us, but we also want to be that beacon of hope, right? That we were talking about with the lighthouse analogy. And there's a couple great ways that we can do that. So great question. We're going to get to that in a couple slides. Control the narrative, testimonials, and reviews. So if your staffing firm has been generating online reviews, online testimonials, now is the perfect time to mix those into your social strategy. Maybe it's every Tuesday, every Thursday. Sharing those positive testimonials are a great way to continue to control the narrative about your organization. If we think about the fact that unemployment is continuing to climb, that report at the beginning of the presentation, I don't want to downplay that. The report said 32%. That's incredibly high. And I hope to God we don't get that high. But if we do, that means there's going to be a lot of people eventually looking for work. And who are they going to go to? They're going to go to the local staffing firm that shows up in search results. They go to people that they know and trust. And how do you earn that trust? Well, online perception is reality. And you might be the best staffing and recruiting firm in the world. But if you have a 1.2 on Google or Facebook and you have some really nasty reviews, I hate to say it, but that perception is reality. We need to make sure that we're controlling the narrative. We need to make sure that we're controlling that story and we're painting the right story about you. So what I would encourage you to do is if you have these online testimonials and reviews, and I hope that you've been generating them already, if you have them, turn those into great sharing graphics. Put a little bit of creative time into that. There's free tools that you can use to design different graphics, or call on a friendly staffing marketing firm to help with that. And think through how you can share those testimonials in a visual way. Control the narrative so that when people are looking for work, they know to come to you because of how good everybody else is talking about you. It's easy for you to say, yeah, we're the best staffing firm in Buffalo, New York. We do this, this, and this because we're great. It's a lot harder to have an online presence that is doing that for you, unless you have great service that backs it up. So if you have those online reviews, great. Let's turn those into sharing graphics. If you don't have those already, I would challenge you over the next 30 days to reach out to those candidates, reach out to those associates who are working, who are on assignment. Maybe it's people that you're placing through COVID-19, through this whole pandemic. Have them write you a quick testimonial. Brad's staffing firm was great. We understand that there's not many people hiring in Buffalo right now, but they were able to find me a job opportunity where I could get back to work, get back on my feet. Ask for those testimonials. Of individuals who are out on assignment still, make sure you ask. I read a great stat that said 88% of individuals are likely to leave feedback if prompted to do so. The problem with that is that we don't ask. We think it's too self-serving to ask somebody to give us feedback. But the majority of people will give you that feedback if asked. So I would challenge you to do that. Sell your open jobs and double down on job advertisements. This really goes both ways. So if we're thinking about how to generate more clients or generate more applications, to me, doubling down on job ads serves both purposes. Let's talk first about the candidate experience. So if we are doubling down on job advertisements, we want to make sure that we are selling the job ad like the commercial for a beer instead of marketing it like the beer ingredients. It's a message that Jennifer Lambert shared on the very first episode of Secrets of Staffing Success, podcast hosted by Todd Lewandowski here at Haley Marketing Group. And it's a comment that has stuck with me for about 2.5 years now. We as an industry are always trying to pre-qualify applicants through the job listing before selling the job itself. What we need to do is make sure that we're positioning these job advertisements in an enticing, captivating way. That we're going through and we're thinking through what would captivate somebody's attention to want to apply to this job. As unemployment continues to climb, we want to make sure that the right people are applying for that job. Absolutely. We don't want to create more work for your team by having anybody and everybody apply, but having great job advertisements will also weed that out. We're making sure that we're getting the right people to apply. We're getting the right people to come through our door. So again, we want to position our job ads like a beer commercial, not like the ingredients of the beer can. We want to make sure we're really selling that position. You might be thinking through, well, Brad, that's great from a candidate perspective. If we post our job the right way, people are going to apply. That's great. We'll generate more applications. But, business is down 40%. What the heck does that mean for me now? To me, posting great job advertisements is also a great way to generate more clients because you're showing your local community how well you could sell a job if given the opportunity to fill it for somebody else. So you're showing these potential prospects, hey, if you give me a job listing, you give me the qualifications, you give me what you're looking for in the type of an individual, here's how we're going to package it. Yes, you're going to give us these list of pre-qual, characteristics. Here's how we're going to package that so that we get the best applicant for you. When do you want to get started? Let us know what role you're actively looking for, what role you're trying to fill right now, and we'll do the work for you. But what you're doing is you're using that job ad as an ad to generate more clients. Think through the job listings on your current website. How are you selling the jobs? If a potential prospect came and saw how you were selling those jobs, would they want to work with you? Or are they saying, they're not really putting that much effort into this. And if they're not putting that much effort into the job listing, how much effort are they going to put into the actual candidate in the screening process? That oftentimes is the first impression that you can make on somebody. Let's really sell it. How about we share a letter from your CEO and we operate with full transparency and full honesty? We did this at Haley Marketing a couple weeks ago. I've facilitated a few of these same messages for a few clients that I'm personally working with. And I know Team Haley has facilitated these letters for quite a few organizations, working with different contacts and leads at different organizations. To me, as we continue to venture in a time of uncertainty, we need to make sure that we're transparent and we're honest about what's going on. And we need to make sure that individuals know what's going on internally. Make sure they know, yeah, we have open jobs. We're still working. It's going to bleed really well into a slide that I have coming up here in a second. But we need to make sure that we're sharing this letter from your CEO. Just write a really nice, thoughtful, open letter to the local community. Take 30 minutes. Take an hour. Sit down with a pen and paper. Don't type it, but speak from the heart. And think through, if you had to talk to your local community about the current unemployment situation, or just the fear and the concern of what's going on, what would you say? If you had the opportunity to host a press conference in place of your local Congress, what would you say? And if it was about unemployment and it was about finding your next job opportunity, how would you spin that? How would you make people feel comfortable? Yes, we have available job opportunities. We expect to have more in a month. We'd love to have you in our database. We'd love to have your name on file. We'd love to have, a quick Zoom call with you so that we can get to know you. And why do we want to get to know you? Because when the world isn't sick and when we go back to being how we were, we want to make sure that we're ready to put you on an assignment as soon as it comes in. So by having that call now, front loads that time so that when a job order that does fit your skills comes in, we're ready. Now you're thinking through a letter that speaks to the end candidate, speaks to individuals, but is transparent and is honest. It blends into sharing company news, process, procedures, and announcements. We had a couple people use the chat window earlier as we were getting started. When I asked how their organization was doing, said that they switched to a full remote lifestyle, or work style rather, sorry, and lifestyle, I guess, work and life. There really is no balance. It kind of all just blends together now. Share company news. Let candidates, let prospects, let clients know, yes, we're still working. We're not closed. Yes, our main office, we're not working there anymore, but our entire team is working around the clock to still facilitate any of your needs. Here's our new process. Instead of coming in for an interview, we're going to hop on a phone call. From the phone call, we're going to go on Zoom. From Zoom, X is going to happen. If you're right for this role, here's how we're going to onboard you virtually. Here's our onboarding documentation. Here's how we're going to do all of this. Control that narrative. Share company news and let individuals know that you're still operating, you're fully functional, and here's how you're beating the competition. Here's how you're taking this to the next level. Yeah, our competitors might be doing X, Y, Z, but here's how we're doing it. And I typically tend not to like to call people out by name. I think it gives them unnecessary attention. But monitor those pages. You can look and see what your competitors are doing by very easily going to their social media platforms. If they're not posting at all, we want to make sure that we're definitely having that leg up. But then we also want to make sure that we're educating the local community on process, procedures, and announcements so that individuals know how to get a hold of you should they need to do so. Share resources. Content. Katrina, this starts to speak to your point. You're personally getting sick of seeing COVID emails, posts, and everything that has to do with it. I know for me and my wife at home, we've really shut off the TV completely. We were never really much of TV people, but it was just consuming everything that we did to the point where we'll watch the news at night, but that's really it. I don't want to know what's going on through the day because I truthfully can't take it anymore. It's frustrating and it's very truthfully, it brings me down. So I'm with you. I don't want to see it either. So we can share great resources that are in line with COVID-19 that aren't necessarily talking about it. And that really leads us to the point that I had made a little while ago, that every post has a purpose. Every post on social media has a purpose, but also every post on your blog should have a purpose. If you're blogging right now and you're creating resources for your candidates, for your clients, those posts should be aligned with what we're seeing in the local economy, what we're seeing in the local market, what we're seeing in a national scale. So, thinking through what some posts might be right now, it's probably not, 5 ways to have a, professional handshake during an interview. It's probably not why you should write a handwritten letter and hand that to an interviewer after your, interview. But it might be, 4 ways to improve your backdrop for your Zoom calls, for your Zoom interviews. What should be behind you when you're running a Zoom call? Is it okay to eat on a Zoom meeting? If you're in an interview, can you bring a coffee? Thinking through from a client standpoint, maybe it's how to effectively manage a remote workforce, how to onboard that remote workforce, how to build trust with a remote workforce that you're no longer seeing working day after day. It's easy to know people are working if they're sitting at their desks. If you're filling clerical positions, it's easy to see people sitting and working. But if everyone's remote, how do you earn that trust? How do they earn that trust? How do you build that trust? Now, how do you know what's going on? Maybe it's thinking through, just sharing posts and content that's more lighthearted. How to motivate yourself throughout the day, how to, stay productive, how to get into a daily routine. Now, I know I'm very not perfect, but I've stuck to my routine of getting up at 5 a.m. Even though I'm not going to the gym anymore, I'm working out in my basement, and I'm sticking to that routine. So maybe your posts are about that. Books that you could read during this time, movies that you could rent. Be very, very mindful. And Katrina, I hope that speaks to your point of, you're sick of hearing about it, and I'm with you, and I think a lot of us are. It's an uncertain time. It's a scary time in some instances. And social media is an escape for a lot of people. Social media is an outlet. So we want to make sure that we're sharing great content that isn't always dark and gloomy, and really the point of this presentation is to be the opposite of dark and gloomy. It started thinking through, yeah, we're going through a lot, but if we as an industry are that beacon of hope and we are that lighthouse, here's what we can be sharing to add some light into the darkness. Bring the fun, mix in pop culture. And I am not much of a movie person. I'm not much of a Netflix person. I just, said on a webinar of, 200 plus people that I don't really watch TV at all. I'm more of a reader. But if you can, on your social media, bring in the fun. And this was an idea that Todd Lewandowski from our team actually shared during a Zoom meeting today with our collective team. Share some fun content on social. It doesn't all have to be tied to business metrics right now. We can share fun things. Maybe your team collectively started a book club. Maybe every Friday you talk about that. Maybe you have your, team take pictures of their remote setups. We were doing that at Haley for a while, where we were taking pictures of our remote setups. And then from there, we were just posting those. We were letting people know, yeah, we're still working, but here's what Brad's desk looked like. And it lets you into my element and how I'm working and how I'm productive. Maybe your team is watching Netflix and binging Netflix or Hulu on the weekend. Maybe it's sharing content of the top movies on Netflix or the top songs on the radio right now or the top podcasts that people can be listening to. We're all trying to navigate this together, and we're all trying to figure out what a sense of normal means. So if we can mix in pop culture and we can mix in this fun content, again, Katrina, this speaks to your point. We can be fun, we can be lighthearted, but we could still be seen as a thought leader on the topics. So bring the fun. It's a great comment that came in from Caitlin. National Wear Your PJs to Work Day is next Thursday, the 16th. Hopefully the Haley marketing team is listening to this so that we can make a note of that. Everyone from home should have great fun with that. Caitlin, truthfully, I think for the majority of people, National Wear Your PJs to Work Day might just kind of be every day at this point. But I think that could lend to some really, really great graphics on the 16th. So we'll need to be mindful of that for sure. I know personally for myself, I've been doing Brewery Shirt Wednesday. So every Wednesday wearing a different brewery shirt and posting that on my own social media. But maybe that's something that, your team is proud of as well. Local establishments, local sports. Maybe you have, it's a great comment here, because we're going to go on a little bit of a tangent, but maybe you still have a local sports day. Baseball season was supposed to open up a couple days ago. I'm a little depressed about that too. But if you're from an area like Boston or New York, or you have a local baseball team, we don't in Buffalo, maybe everybody takes a picture of themselves working with a jersey on or a hat on, and you share that. Everyone hops on Zoom and you take a really quick screen share or a screen grab of that. For you football fans out there, maybe it's throwing on football jerseys and saying, really hope the season still kicks off. But thinking through how you can have some more fun, share your team, showcase your team culture, but still bring the fun with that. Thanks for sharing that, Caitlin. I appreciate it. Invest in advertising, deliberate messaging, direct calls to action. And you might be thinking, now's the wrong time to invest in advertising. People want to be left alone. They don't want to be sold to. They just want to kind of hang out and exist. I would challenge that, and I would say that now is the perfect time to invest in advertising if you're deliberate and if you have direct call to action. Saw a stat on a blog from SparkToro, and I can't remember exactly when it was posted. I want to say a week or two ago, that said something along the lines of Twitter traffic itself was up 50% month over month. I'm sorry, Twitter advertising costs were down 50%. Collective website and internet traffic was up 50% month over month. So if we looked at March compared to February, there are more users on social media now than there were in February, candidly, because everyone's home. So even if you're working throughout the day, you're still getting bored, you're walking around, you're not having that water cooler chat, you're not having that 5 minutes with a coworker to see how things were, or talk about a show you're watching. So instead, you're scrolling Twitter to have that 5-minute break. I've said for a while that social media is the modern smoke break. I still believe that. We, as an industry, can be very deliberate with our advertising, and through direct call to action, make sure that we're driving clients to reach out about services or driving candidates to reach out and apply. I have some examples here on the next slide that I had Hannah Eberly pull from our team. She runs an overwhelming majority of all the social paid here at Haley Marketing Group, and she pulled a couple graphics that she really likes, and I wanted to share with you today. Look at this first example here. We're deliberate, we're showing great imagery, but ultimately we're selling our services. And we're saying that if you have open jobs, see how we deliver and learn more. And there's that clear button of learning more. Yeah, I do want to know how you deliver. How can you help me now learn more? Another option here, get connected with the right candidate today. We won't send an unqualified candidate just to fill a slot. Your long-term success is our guarantee or our promise. You would click to see more of that copy, but we're very deliberate with that copy. And there's different ways that we could be deploying these ads on Facebook. Maybe we've uploaded a client list and a client mailing list, those emails, and we're targeting individuals based on their email. Or maybe we're deploying what Amazon considers remarketing, what the collective internet considers remarketing. We coin it re-recruiting at Haley Marketing, or there's other remarketing tactics that you can deploy. But essentially, and I'll paint the picture here for you, if you've been on Amazon in the last 3 to 6 weeks and you've looked at a product, the chances are high that when you went to Facebook, you saw that product start to follow you. We can do that, and you can do that with your website. It's called remarketing. You put a code on your website, and as when somebody leaves, they get tagged with that code so that they see ads to come back. We should be doing that with all the client services pages on your website, so that if somebody is looking for support during this time, we're following them around the internet. In the same respect, we should be doing that from a candidate standpoint. Love the copy here. Have you been impacted by COVID-19 and are left looking for a job? We're still hiring. Looking for work? We are hiring. Apply now. Super, super direct, super deliberate. It lets the social user know exactly what the ad is. Here's a fun fact for you. I just learned this from my wife over the weekend, actually. Every 4th post that you see on your Facebook newsfeed is an advertisement. Now, some of you might be saying, wow, that's a ton of ads. For me, that screams opportunity. If every 4th post, every opportunity I have a 25% chance that somebody's going to see my content every 4 posts. I'm all in on that. So if every 4th post on Facebook is an ad, we want to make sure that we're deploying the right ads with the right messaging, with the right copy, with the right imagery that speaks to current pain points. This example from Halpin is really exceptional. You can see 41 comments, 33 shares on this. So these are people that are sharing this post. They might not be looking for their job, but they're sharing it with their networks. They're sharing it with their friends and their family. Hey, I might know a bunch of people that are unemployed. Thankfully, my family is all still, employed right now, but I know as you're on this call right now, you probably know quite a few people that are looking for work. You would see this post, you could share it, but we want to make sure that we're getting in front of the right people with the right messaging. Go live for an AMA and ask me anything. If you're thinking about video content and you're saying, Brad, why would I get invested in video content? I would say that now is the perfect time to go live, to start deploying video content. And here's why. Everybody is becoming comfortable with video on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. LinkedIn is kind of there. I run a weekly video series on LinkedIn. I don't see the ROI that I do on other platforms. I will say that. But every band is going live on Facebook. Every band's going live on Instagram. So yes, that's a completely different industry. But what that tells me is that as consumers of media, those bands, those front leaders are now training candidates, potential prospects, clients, what it means to watch Facebook Live. So when you go live, those people have already been briefed on what to do. They've already been briefed on here's how you join Facebook Live, here's how you watch, here's how you add a comment, because country stars and other bands are going live. So go live for an AMA. And what you can do, just take out an iPhone, take out the Android device that you have in your pocket. You don't need a high production value. Just put yourself in the right lighting in your house or outside. Take out your smartphone and go live on the company page and ask questions, answer questions. As people are asking you things like we did through this webinar, questions come in, pause, think about it, answer the question, join the conversation. In the same respect, taking a lesson from this webinar and this presentation, there were times earlier in the talk where other attendees were adding value, and that becomes part of the conversation as well. It's not just questions, but it's also the answer to the question. You're facilitating that. You become a facilitator in that standpoint. But go live and answer people's questions. Maybe it's about how you can improve the hiring process, or how you're onboarding, or how you can get top tier talent right now. One concern that I've heard from multiple staffing firms is that high unemployment is just as bad as low unemployment, because at low unemployment, you have a low number of people applying. High unemployment, you have everybody applying, and you still have to weed through those applications. It's just as hard to find those all-star candidates. So if you're live and somebody's talking about, how can you add value to me? Position that in a way of, I can find you the all-star. I can find you that A player, and here's how. Backed by this case study, or backed by this testimonial, supported by XYZ. So I challenge you to go live. I know video content can be scary. I'm very understanding of that. Press the button, record yourself, go live. If you're not ready to go live, what I would challenge you to do is instead record yourself. Sit down, think through what you would do on 5 videos, 5 different instances. So maybe we use this as our idea for next week, Monday through Friday. Film 5 videos. As you're filming those videos, all you're going to do is watch them back and slightly critique yourself. Don't overly critique yourself. Don't take it too seriously, because we do eventually want you to publish this, when the time's right. Watch them back and learn and develop. When you record that 6th video, then take that live. Learn from your mistakes, learn from your mannerisms, learn from those times you keep saying or like. Learn to pause and breathe and slow your speaking down. I know I have a tendency, when I get passionate about a topic, I tend to talk faster. So I try to mindfully tell myself to slow it down. Do the same thing. Think through that in the first 5, so that when you do take that 6th one live, you're ready to go and you're prepped. Toby had a great idea here. Try to establish a blog. Absolutely. If you as an organization have your website hosted, you should have a blog on that site. Encourage your recruiters, encourage your team to write content and share content on the blog, answering the pain points that we talked about in the content section. What is your local market seeing right now, and how do you add value? One thing that I say, and this is a great point, Toby, one thing that I say time after time when I'm delivering talks like this is, if you've never blogged before, you might not know where to get started. For me, blogging starts by answering the question that you get asked in your email time after time that you never want to have to answer again. So next time you get that question, instead of typing the email, type it in a Word doc, publish it on your company blog, and send that link to the individual that asked you the question. Now, anytime that somebody asks you that question, you have that typed up response. You're driving people back to your website. They can learn about your services. They can reach out to request an employee. If it's candidate focused, they can ask questions about jobs that are available or contact you. But you're front loading your time, and time is precious. So front load that time, start that blog, and publish out great resources. I want to share one more thought about content too, and this is a great comment that came in from our own director of SEO, Brad Smith here. Content like that is perfect for search engine optimization as well. I appreciate the insight here, Brad. When you're publishing content about timely events and timely situations, we're increasing the likelihood that those are going to show up in Google search. So as we're posting about how to navigate a job search through COVID-19, you have a very specific long tail keyword, very specific keyword search. So we're increasing the likelihood that that shows up in search results. We're optimizing it to show up in search results. So we're getting a little outside the scope of social media, but we're optimizing for page views from search. We want to make sure then that we have the right keywords, that we're targeting the right traffic. But Toby, to your point, establishing a blog, if you're talking about real-time events, you're talking about things that are happening in the local economy right now, the chances are good that individuals are going to see that because of, that SEO footprint. You might even, Toby has another idea here for you. You might even send those blogs to the local news. Send them and tag different reporters on social. We shared the example of Channel 4 and Channel 7 earlier. If you're writing about how to find a job during COVID-19, tag local reporters. Maybe they'll share it out to their local communities because they're in business to serve the community just like you are. So you're leveraging that in different ways. Now, I know we're nearing on 3 o'clock here, Eastern, and typically Lunch with Haley is an hour. I've set aside 90 minutes today to be here for an hour and a half and go till 3:30. We had some great questions come throughout the presentation. I have a few more slides, and then what I'm going to do is open up for a general Q&A. If you do have to hop off, I do want to mention that I am incredibly mindful of your time, and I appreciate you sticking around this long and joining us today for Lunch with Haley. The webinar is recorded. If you don't have to hop off, hopefully there's a ton of value here for you that you will stick around for the next 15 to 30. But I do want to share that if you do have to hop off, you have another call, another meeting, another appointment, this is recorded and will be on lunchwithhaley.com by early next week. Become a resource and join groups, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn. Join those groups and become a trusted resource in those groups. Going back to the quote from Mark Schaefer, be more human, the most human company wins. Joining groups, we want to make sure that we are listening first and we're talking second. We don't want to join a group and just say, hey, we're hiring, or we're sharing job after job after job. We want to make sure that we're joining the group, we're adding value. So join localized groups. Maybe they're specific to Western New York or Buffalo, New York, where you're from. Maybe they're very specific groups of jobs hiring in Buffalo, New York, or hiring in Buffalo. But thinking through how you can be a resource, add value. And you might be thinking to yourself, Brad, I don't have the time in my day to join groups, join the comment section, be a lurker in some Facebook groups. I'm not asking you to do this every day, but maybe once a week you go into 4 or 5 groups, you see what's going on, or while you're sitting on your couch watching Jeopardy, during those commercial breaks, hop in for 5 minutes, answer some questions, be of value to the community, and then get out of the group. Once you earn that trust, then you can share jobs, you can share opportunities, you can start the conversation. But I would encourage you to join that conversation first. Become a resource. Before I go to my last slide here and kind of start to finish up the presentation, I just want to reiterate that the scope of this presentation in thinking through how to manage your brand accounts and your brand voice on social media during COVID-19, there was a lot shared today. We had a lot of really good chatter in the questions window, in the chat window. Super, super happy with all of that. And if you're sitting here thinking, this is overwhelming, where do I get started? What do I do? I want you to know that one, Haley Marketing, myself, we are always available as a resource. If you have questions, my information is going to be the last slide here. You can shoot me an email, or you could always reach out to info@haleymarketing.com. You can lean on us. That said, I am confident that you could also do this yourself, and you can think through some of the steps in here and get started immediately. The goal isn't to overwhelm. My goal and my effort with this presentation was to give you a series of tools that you can arm with your social media toolbox. You can get started with one or two and then expand from there. You want to start slow, start with what you know best, and then progress. So we're not going to try to do all of this tomorrow. I myself wouldn't even try to do all of this tomorrow. Start with one and go from there. Think about working out or running a marathon. If you haven't ran or walked around your block in 2 years, you wouldn't tomorrow wake up, put on an old pair of shoes, and try to run a marathon. You'd start by walking around the block. Maybe you'd walk 2 blocks. Then you'd run half of that, you'd walk half of it, you'd ease into it. This is the exact same. I know time is of the essence while we're in this pandemic and everyone wants to move rather quickly, especially as we're losing business and we're doing things like that, as some of you have said in the questions window and the chat window. But we want to walk and we want to be slow here. We want to make sure that we're taking the right steps and that we're moving strategically. I want to end with a quote, as I typically do. You saw the lighthouse imagery and the beacon of hope metaphor throughout the presentation. I want to leave with lighthouses don't get all wobbly when the weather gets rough. They just stand there shining. If we think about the staffing and recruiting industry, for the better part of 7 years now, I've been a part of this great industry and I've met thousands of incredible people, speaking at different conferences and working with different clients and coming into contact with different individuals. I'm incredibly proud of the industry. I'm incredibly proud of what we do. We put great people to work in great opportunities. And at the beginning of the presentation, we had some very dark and gloomy statistics. Those are out there. You've already been made aware of those. I'm sure you're watching the local news very, very closely. What I'd offer to you is that now is not the time to panic. If we think about the lighthouse, it doesn't get wobbly when the weather gets rough. The lighthouse is that beacon of hope. We're here to put great people in great opportunities and be the hope that both employers and job seekers are looking for. So what we can do is use social media to control our brand voice, to control that message, and make sure that we're getting our footprint out where people can see it. We're joining the conversation and we're being a part of that local community. As I mentioned, I'm going to stay on the line here for another 20, 25 minutes. I'd love to answer any questions that come through. Before I do so, I want to share a few resources with you so that you can stay connected with Haley Marketing. The first, Haley Marketing has launched a brand new Slack workspace called Staffing Works. If you want information on how to join Staffing Works, you can go to haleymarketing.com. There's a great blog article on our website about joining Staffing Works. Or you could leave a question in the chat window. Just say, send me the link, and we'll get that to you. I unfortunately did not add that link, the direct link to here, but we can get that to you, I promise. And in that Slack workspace are a strong group of like-minded individuals like yourselves, sharing insight, sharing questions, talking about what they're seeing, talking about what they're experiencing, and having that dialogue. Now, we're all in this together. And that workspace is built in functions to operate as an open dialogue of staffing professionals. So I would encourage you to join the Staffing Works workspace on Slack, presented by Haley Marketing. Next, if you haven't already, I would encourage you to subscribe to the Secrets of Staffing Success. the leading podcast for the staffing and recruiting industry, presented by Haley Marketing Group. On the off weeks, myself and Matt Lozar host a segment called Insights, where we share what's working in recruitment marketing and digital marketing. And on the weeks that Matt and I don't put out an episode, Todd Lewandowski, our director of content marketing, interviews thought leaders and thinkers and experts from the staffing and recruiting industry to find out what's working for them and what is their secret of staffing success. So I'd encourage you to subscribe to that on your preferred podcast player, or you could always listen on haleymarketing.com. And of course, if you know somebody or you think you have somebody in mind who would be perfect for the show, I would encourage you to leave that in the questions window as well. You can leave a question or a chat window. Just let us know who we should interview next, and we'll add that to our list. We just put together a great set of resources on COVID-19, business strategy and great marketing ideas. You can find that on haleymarketing.com. We have a great landing page set up for you. But essentially what we've built is a functioning section where the staffing industry can come, can learn from strategies and marketing ideas that we've deployed over the years that will generate more applications and more job orders. And before we open it up fully to Q&A, I want to share the two presentations that we have coming up. We rolled out one extra one in April. We have Sales Mastery, the top 3 growth strategies in an economic downturn. That's going to be hosted by Dan Morey of Employment Solutions. That's on April 16th. And then on April 21st, we have our product demo, Haley Marketing Tech. Bet you didn't know we were a tech company. Staffing tools and expertise to drive sales, marketing, and recruiting. Both of those are at 2 p.m. on the 16th and the 21st. We'll send out some email marketing around that and some email reminders for you, but you can always subscribe and watch old and past webinars by going to lunchwithhaley.com. You can register right on the homepage, or you can go to Webinars on Demand to watch all of the previously recorded webinars like today's presentation. So with that, I'm Brad Bialy. I want to thank everybody for sticking around and hanging out and listening to my insights today on really how you can manage your brand accounts during COVID-19. If we think about what you can do and how you can move forward, I hope that this worked as a game plan for you. I hope that you've left with some great resources and some great insight into what you can do and with the tactics that you can deploy starting this afternoon. If you have specific questions, I'm going to stay on the line for 20 minutes here. I'm happy to answer those for you. If you don't want to use the questions window, you could also email me. My email is on the screen here, or you could connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also reach out to info@haleymarketing.com. So there's plenty of ways to elevate that question. But if you do have any questions following the talk, what I'm going to ask you to do is use that questions window on the GoToWebinar display and post in what you have, and let's continue the conversation there. It doesn't look like we have any real questions coming through. I want to thank Mark, and we do have one here from Jenna. Mark, thanks for joining us. I know you said you got to hop out, but I appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Jenna reached out and said, you mentioned the importance of putting real effort behind job descriptions on websites. Would you recommend utilizing pre-made templates for different industries that recruiters can use to fill in information? This is actually a really great topic, Jenna, and one that Matt and I have talked about on Insights before in thinking through that pre-made template and thinking through how you can have sort of sections that you can plug and play. So how do you have a sort of standardized job listing that can then be modified, right? So I think what you want to do is be mindful of each opportunity. That becomes a challenge if, let's say, for example, you're in a, the warehousing space where, you're putting people in warehouses, doing the same tasks, job after job after job. How many times can you really say that description, or how many times can you really sell that? So maybe what you do is you build a template around the location, around what's near it, around the salary and how it's competitive. You have a template based on the employer and why working at warehouse X is better than working at warehouse Y. But you use that pre-made template. Maybe you think through selling the job in a way that speaks to the end candidate making it home in time for dinner, or their kid's sporting event when all of this is over. But yeah, then you would effectively have those 5 or 6 different templates that you can go in and out with, and then modify. So you're not just using the template, but you're using that to spin. Olivia had a question here about how effective do you find email marketing to be, such as newsletters in both client and candidates. Email marketing to me has always been impactful. I think it is even more impactful given the current situation that we're in. We've seen a ton of great success for the clients that we work with and the individuals that we partner with on sending just general emails, whether it's about the current process or procedures or announcements, or hey, we're still open, we're still working, we're pivoting to Zoom instead of face-to-face meetings, those kinds of emails. And then I think there's also a ton of value in sending top jobs to your candidate database. If you have a database of 1,000 candidates, right, and maybe it's more, but let's just use 1,000 as an example. You have a database of 1,000 candidates. You can email them and go one to many with that approach, and you're sending them your 5 best jobs, and you're also wrapping messaging around that saying we're still hiring. Yes, there's a lot going on that we're all trying to navigate, but we're still hiring, and these are 5 open jobs that we're currently reviewing applications for. Send that out to your list. Maybe you reach out to your candidates and you ask for referrals. We're still hiring. Do you know anybody that might be interested in this job? Please forward it to them, or sign up for our referral program. On the client side, maybe you're emailing your prospects a list of top candidates. You're sending them 5 people that are ready to work, that are ready to go, that you're reaching out and you're saying, if you're hiring or if you have an immediate need, give us a call, request an employee. You're skill marketing that top talent, and you're generating job orders through email marketing. I find a ton of value in email marketing. I always have, but I stick to the comment that I made that I think even now more so, there's more value in email marketing because you can reach that database so effectively and so efficiently that it ends up helping in a really great way. So Randy had a really good question here. It said, seems like there's still something missing. And I appreciate the honesty here. How do you ask your clients who you have a relationship with how you can be of help? How can I understand what they're seeking to do next without coming hard at them? If you have a relationship with somebody, and you said this right in the question, how do you ask clients who you have a relationship with how you can be of help? To me, it's being human, and it's humanizing that response and humanizing that message to them. We did this at Haley Marketing over the past week or two, all that we did is reach out to every single, client that we're working with on an ongoing basis. And I'm speaking from recent memory of, the digital marketing team here, just reaching out saying, hey, how's everything going? And how can we help? How's business? What are you seeing in your local market? For you specifically, Randy, maybe it's, sending your current clients and people that you have a relationship with great news resources that you found. Maybe they're from your blog or maybe they're not, but maybe you're just sending those resources and saying, hey, do you guys see this? How is this impacting you? Maybe it's thinking through one of those top candidate mailings, like I just said. You're reaching out to those clients and you're saying, hey, I know that a lot of organizations are cutting down their workforce. We're still talking to, and I don't want to use the word backfilling, but we're generating applications from a series of candidates, right? A number of candidates. We're screening them and they're ready to go. So when you're ready to hire, we're going to be ready too. And I know that I stumbled around that messaging a little bit because I saw another question come in. I got a bit distracted for a second, but it's thinking through the messaging around we're going to be prepared for when you're ready. So yes, you might be shut down or you might be limiting your workforce now, but in May or in June when you ramp up, I want you to know you have my word that we're ready to go too. So you're not selling right away. You're saying and you're being of value. You're showing them that yes, we have this long-standing relationship. One, I just want to check in and see how you're doing. Maybe you have good relationships with people, but you haven't reached out to them in a while. Maybe it's a simple text message. Hey, how's the family, or how's everything been? How's the office, or how's the warehouse doing? I think you add that human nature to it, and I think that's where it starts. And then I think the conversation instinctively pivots from there. So one thing that we do, and I'm getting a little long-winded here, but I'm having more ideas on the topic, Randy. Maybe you just pick up the phone and you call the clients that you work with, and you get on the phone, picks up, and it's, hey, Brad, how's business? Let that person talk. Let them vent, let them rant, see where that conversation goes. If they say business is good, great. Now you have an opportunity to talk to them about how you can facilitate their hiring needs. Say, business isn't going so great, we had to lay a couple people off. Now you pivot that conversation to, okay, well, just so you know, we're still screening candidates. We're going to be ready to go when you're ready. But you're opening the conversation with how's business, something that is very personal to them, something that they could talk about for a while, and just let them go. Let them rant. Be that shoulder lean on, be that individual that they can talk to for a while and continue to earn their trust. I hope that helps for you. Olivia had a question about generating testimonials. So do you have any suggestions on any creative strategies to get testimonials from our clients? I know a lot of times they get disregarded. They might, and that's a great point. So what I would do is I would reach out to the 3 to 5 accounts that you have a great relationship with, and have your entire team do the same. So you're not reaching out to every single client asking for a testimonial, but let's handpick that and let's hand screen those. So the 3 to 5 accounts that you're constantly filling job orders in the facility, you're constantly providing great service to, reach out to them via email. And how I would frame it in a way of, I would frame it as, we've had a great relationship. Just wondering if you would take 5 minutes to leave us a quick review on Facebook. These go a really long way for us as we look at building our authority in this local market. Would love to leave a review for you. And maybe you reciprocate that. And you say something along the lines of, once that's done, I'd love to do the same for you. I'd love to leave an endorsement for you personally on LinkedIn and talk about the relationship that we have. Or I'd love to leave a review on your company's Facebook page about how great of an employee you are and how much of an asset you are to their organization. So you reciprocate that. I think that's a great way to reach out to clients. And I think that reciprocation process then gives them more stake in the game. And gives them a reason to potentially want to do that even more and help out even more. But I would be under the assumption that if you reached out to your top 3 to 5 accounts, and you were very honest in saying, I'm trying to generate a few reviews for our Facebook page this month. Can you please take 5 minutes just to do this and send the link? I would wager that they would do that for you. I don't see any other questions coming in. I did get one random Go Bills though, and I do appreciate that. I am available to stay on for a couple more minutes here if there are other questions. Otherwise, I do want to thank everybody that has stuck around this long. I do appreciate your attention. I appreciate your willingness to join us for Lunch with Haley this afternoon. Again, I hope you got a ton of value out of this presentation. I hope there are a series of tactics here that you can start deploying this afternoon. If you have any follow-up questions, if you do want to chat, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You just search for Brad Bialy, or you can email me at bmb@haleymarketing.com. I'm going to go on mute here for a second. If no other questions come in, I do want to thank you again, and thank you for joining us for today's Lunch with Haley.